In this help video, I'd like to look at the situation that can occur when you're looking at the Bloodhound signals, for example here, where there's no MTPredictor signal on the chart here. So let's have a look at a bit later in the chart. You can see that our MTPredictor signals here line up nicely with the Bloodhound signals. By the way, on this particular video, what I've actually done is if I bring the panel in here, you can see I'm actually looking for all our setups. So I'm looking for all our setups on this one. And you can see here it found the VS buy, the PB buy, VS sell. All of these line up quite nicely. But what can happen, and it may be a point of confusion, that's why I'm doing this video, is here and here. Can you see how there was a potential sell as identified by this -1 output on Bloodhound on this particular bar, but no MTPredictor signal, and a potential buy on this one with no MTPredictor signal? Normally what we do with MTPredictor is, can you see these history triangles here? And these are obviously highlighted by the Bloodhound output as well. Now, do you remember what a history triangle is? It's basically where there was a setup that was filled on the next bar and then stopped out, and our routines then had to calculate as our swings carried on in the same direction. So in other words, this would have been a valid sell setup at the time because there would have been a short trade initiated, then it would have been stopped out, then the market moved on. So that's why we put the history triangle there. That's why we allow you to place the analysis on the chart. But if we come back to this one here, and well, they're both the same, exactly in the opposite directions, can you see what is unique about this? Is, let's place a line here on the low of that bar there. There's the low of the bar there. So this is what would happen on this particular bar here. At the time, as the market was moving forward, this would have actually been highlighted as a potential MTPredictor sell setup. But as I've just said for the history triangles, what happens is if the market then was taken into a trade, in other words, moved one tick below the low of this bar, then you would have been in a trade, and then if it had gone above the stop level, which would have been, let's draw another line, one tick above the high of the bar, it would have been stopped out. But can you see what happened here? The market didn't go below what would have been the entry signal at the time before moving beyond what would have been the stop at the time. So in other words, this potential trade setup, let's think of it as a potential trade setup, was invalidated before it was triggered. So in other words, there was no trade entered. Same kind of thing here. Here's your blue buy bar, so the entry at the time, if there was a signal, would have been one tick above the high. The stop would have been one tick below the low of that bar, and here you can see the market went down below the low before going above the what would have been the entry level. In other words, this setup here, again, like this short trade, would have been invalidated before it was entered. So in other words, there was no need to keep any signal on the chart. That's why there's nothing there when you look at it in MTPredictor, and that's why there's no history triangle here, because there would have been no trade entered. But of course with Bloodhound, it starts at the left hand side of the chart and just works forward on every single bar, just reporting when a particular MTPredictor setup would have been signaled. So on this bar here, it then correctly found a potential, remember we'll use the word potential, MTPredictor setup. That's why there was an output on Bloodhound. It moved forward and no label was left on the chart by MTPredictor because it wouldn't have been a valid trade because it wouldn't have been entered. Same thing happened here. The market was moving forward. It would have found then a sell on that bar, but the market went beyond the stop level, potential stop level, before entering the short trigger. So therefore there was no trade, short trade entered. So that's why the Bloodhound left a signal there, because at the time there was a potential trade set up, but it wasn't triggered. That's why there's nothing on the chart. So I just wanted to do a quick video on that just to clear that up, because it can be a little bit confusing when you first look at this and say, yes, I can see the MTPredictor signals and they line up nicely with the Bloodhound input. I can even see the historical triangle signals here that again line up with the Bloodhound output. But sometimes there are situations like this where there's a Bloodhound output but nothing on the chart to do with MTPredictor. That is why, because at the time it was a potential MTPredictor setup, but it was invalidated before the trade was actually entered. Therefore there was no trade, therefore there was no reason to keep any label on the chart.